Welcome to the Stay at Work Home. We are here to question the prevailing assumptions about the meaning of life, work, and the purpose of people. Instead of being torn apart by our vocations, we want to be pulled together. Come along with us as we change our picture of the good life and pursue the home as God intended, one that worships through work together. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I got your face. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stay at Work Home. I'm Keith.
I'm Becky.
And today we're going to talk about something that I think is highly neglected in modern thought about dating and marriage. What is it, Becky?
Occupational companionship.
That's right. It's not recreational companionship. It's occupational companionship. And that matters because we are not trying to live as consumers who are recreating all the time and live to glorify themselves by consuming everything forever, but to glorify God by enjoying Him forever, doing what He told us to do, which started a long time ago and started with God put Him in the garden to work it and keep it, produce and protect. So if you're hanging with, oh, by the way, then He created a woman and said, help him. Okay, so
controversial thing number one.
Boom. Just right from the get-go. Let's make this really, really, really controversial. So this last, it wasn't a weekend, it was a couple weekdays. Becky and myself flew to another city to hang out with a business partner and his wife and do talking mostly and hanging out and some actual working on this particular business and some, use a funny thing, vision casting, really figuring out what in the world we're doing, right? And what I found out was that I have certain strengths. Well, we already know stuff we already knew, but we got to enjoy it again. I have certain strengths.
Keith always loves his strengths.
And Becky has certain strengths. And her strengths are not my strengths. We complement each other. Would you say that's true?
No, we make fun of each other all the time.
That's not what I mean.
Different form of compliment.
Yeah.
Compliment.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I don't spell well either.
Anyway.
Becky does.
Sometimes.
Usually. She can do math well. I'm not a big math guy.
Yet. He's learning.
Yeah. So, but it's not the first time that we've had a good time being productive or like doing work, whether it's like a yard project, building project. I remember when we flipped our first property, we were working on it. You helped a lot. We worked together. And at the time, I think Chip and Joe Gaines were like the new hot thing. And we were doing that at the same time. Yeah. And when you were carrying a compound sliding miter saw from your truck into this property you're flipping, you felt like a rock star. Like it was the equivalent of playing air guitar, but it's even realer because there's an actual guitar. In this case, a compound sliding miter saw.
Cracks me up too because half of that work was done very, very pregnant.
You were very pregnant
with our fourth child, or then nursing said fourth child. So that was an adventure. We also flipped another house later where we figured out pretty quickly that I couldn't actually do that work, and I think actually that was a really
why. It was because
was there a fifth child?
No, it was because Martin.
I don't know.
It was because Martin's age. Martin was at a certain age where he had to have somebody. Our oldest children couldn't be just left at the house alone with him. They weren't old enough at that point. And they would only take care of him so long before they kind of flaked out. He
was just too old to sit still quietly and happily and nap or play.
Yeah.
But too young to be able to entertain himself and too young for the older kids who weren't old enough to really entertain him.
And that house flipping was not nearly as good of a time as the other ones.
It was actually really disappointing because I had wanted to work in it. And that was an interesting just learning lesson in and of itself. Like there are seasons for things. And sometimes you can't flip the house together.
That was very sad.
It was, but
so I just had to
little did I know.
Flip it over.
Little did I know we had plenty of opportunities to do lots of work together later on. But you know what I never did?
What's up?
I never flew an aircraft with you. I mean, you tried to make me one time or two, but I demanded that I wouldn't.
Many times.
Okay, fine. But I wouldn't at all. So I guess I haven't always been a believer in occupational companionship.
Imagine this. You're in an airplane with somebody who is a flight instructor, and they're offering to teach you how to fly the plane. They want you to learn how to fly the plane. And because you're probably going to fly with them a lot, and we did fly together with me flying for many years, and maybe in the future we'll do it again, you might think that being able to land that plane would be like relevant skill that you might want to learn just in case some kind of emergency happens. But no, Becky said we ride together
We
and
die
we
together.
burn in together. I don't want to learn how to fly the plane. And like, I would like, take my hands off, close my eyes, like, oh, cheers, you got to take it. You got to take it. She wouldn't take it. She's like, no, I'd rather die. We're just going to die.
But we've already discussed on this podcast how the one person that can't instruct you to ski is your spouse. And that principle remained behind the wheel, the controls.
But we didn't even try.
No,
and you've confessed that I am a good instructor.
Yeah.
Because you've watched me instruct other people. Yeah. And you've watched me instruct other people like how to drive a stick shift or something like that. And you're good at it. Now, I was not a good skiing instructor, like from the get-go. So maybe I could be now. Maybe it would work. But generally, you did not want to hear it from me. But that was learning as opposed to really like working together.
Anyway, that was it was an interesting thing to think about. Like you spent years in a career that I couldn't participate in at all.
Yeah.
And that there was a sense, actually, some of the most fun that we had was in your job was when I could go along with you, even though I couldn't work with you.
Yeah,
I could fly with you, or I could come sit in the office with you if necessary, or I would come for your training week. And when you were out,
she didn't fly in the helicopter with me, but sometimes I took the plane to different places.
Yeah. So this last week, though, was kind of interesting. I think one of the things we've done recently is looked into our personality types in relationship to how we work in a general context, not necessarily maritally. But it was really encouraging. My personality type is not one that, choose your test and I'll probably try to take it the way you think I want you to hear it. So then you guys can now decide what kind of personality I am according to that. But in this particular one, it was really encouraging for me when I just assessed myself with these different metrics. It was the DISC is what it used. This particular test used the DISC analysis. And it pegged me well. It just did a good job. And it made me realize that there was a value and a place for me as a business owner or business. Well, I don't want to say owner and just, I guess business owner. I don't like using that word because I don't feel like he has to own it because if everything goes wrong, it's all his fault. But if it goes well, it's ours, right? What's yours is mine and what's mine. No,
is ours.
Wait, that goes backwards. Anyway, we won't quote Little Rascals again. But it was really good because his was not the same as mine. And yet it was quick for me to see a very good compatibility in how those things work together. And having that framework to think about moving on to yet more business endeavors and more entrepreneurial things just made me go, I have a place here. I have a place at this table to have a conversation that I can own that confidently. Because I think in some situations, I don't want to assert my opinion because I need to just submit to be content with what you decide.
And this is not how that works.
But that's not really how this works.
In terms of actually figuring out where we're going.
Right. And Keith, you're not like that.
No.
Typically. But being a more visionary minded person, you see things, we've always talked about, you see things from a global perspective, from the how many thousand highest level possible. And that often means he has no clue what's happening here in the minutia. Let me tell you who knows all about what's going on in the minutia, or at least a lot of it.
And the future minutia. And the future predicting the future minutia and planning for the future minutia.
Not planning for the future overhead, but the minutia, right?
Yeah.
So, and that those things actually can work together without being constant pushback. And I think that's what this last week, especially.
There was this moment in the last week where she was asking someone who has far more education in the financial and business realm than we do, which is drilling him with questions. And it was questions where, like, every time she asked a question, I was like, man, I wish I'd have thought of that. I like by the end, I was like, my wife is so cool. So there's a thing that's often said, I can't work with my wife. I could never work with my wife. And the flip side of that, let's say this, who do people usually go cheat on their spouse with? It's usually not someone at the bowling alley. I'm sure that happens too. It's usually not someone they meet at Disney World.
But generally,
it's generally someone at work, someone they meet at work. There's a bonding that is supposed to happen through work. We're created that way. So if you are not married and you are looking for a spouse, how do you find out if, let's see if I find out the right one? Like everybody is potentially compatible. You can work through it. Arranged marriages work out. They have for most of history. I'm not saying you should go have an arranged marriage. Have a love marriage. But you are going to be learning about each other. So you get sort of buy-in from both parties before you enter this most intimate of all and most costly of all relationship. And how are you going to get to know each other and prepare yourselves for each other in that dating, that courting, that getting to know each other? I would submit to you that it's not by watching movies together. It's not by going on fancy vacations together in which, we never turned the light on. Hold on. Let's turn that down. It's too bright.
That's going to be awkward in the video.
It's going to be very awkward. Okay.
Oh, well.
It's not through doing any of those sort of recreational things. We got along so great when we were dating. What did you do when you were dating? We went to really expensive restaurants, or we went on really expensive vacations, because most people are sleeping together when they're not married and stuff too. You shouldn't do that either. But they're doing all of this like fun, consumeristic, expensive stuff. And then they get married and
that's not what life is
about. Yeah.
Those are the occasionals, not the regulars.
Yes. So like maybe you should go tend a garden together. I don't know. Like what? Plant a garden and tend it. Go clean up the sticks in the yard together.
What did we do together?
What did we do together?
When we were getting to know each other. Now, full disclosure, we didn't really date. So that's a whole...
We went to Dairy Queen. We went to church together.
Because we were like infants.
We went on youth group trips together.
We worked together at church. We
did work together at church.
Work at church. We worked in band and skit stuff together at church. We were often in the setup and tear down crew at church together.
Yep.
We had regular old mundane experiences. Our families to some degree engaged together and just kind of more normal-ish stuff. And I mean, I've always
paint a room together.
We did do that early on in marriage.
Move furniture together?
Maybe. Go serve together, serve the community. I don't know. What did we do? I guess we probably knocked on doors or something.
You could go be in a local play together. Local theater.
Yeah.
You could
be in the context of a group together. That's actually a really critical, I think, part of what worked well for us. And is that we didn't spend a lot of time alone together. Now, we weren't dating either. So I think if we had been a typical dating couple, we would have.
That's a whole other story.
Yeah. That'd be a fun podcast for all those who don't know our story.
We got married basically.
Yeah. We knew each other's families really well. And that was probably as much that mattered. Yep. And that's why we perfectly get along all the time and never have any conflict. Just kidding. Lightning's going to strike this computer right now. Anyway, but there is something to it. We early on in marriage, we didn't do a whole lot of working of stuff together. I would say he was in the military. What do? I sit around at home, but we loved cooking together.
We traveled. We cooked together was great. We traveled because we were young.
We learned
no kids in Europe, so we needed to travel. But the things that really struck us, and I think the thing that we feel like we missed out on, and maybe we were starting to get there by the time we left, was really instead of just going to these little idyllic towns and stuff and sipping coffee and trying the food or wine from that place or the other, was actually getting involved in more doing stuff. And do you remember when we were walking and the lady was she on a horse, or was she just met us and we talked? She spoke enough English that we could have a conversation. It wasn't great English, but it was definitely good enough. And she had horse. I think she was on a horse, or maybe she just talked about it. And it wasn't far. It was 15, 20 minutes from our house. We were just walking down one of these trails that are everywhere in Germany. And she wanted us to come over and ride horses in exchange for working on her English with her, like just having someone to speak English with. Remember this?
No.
You've forgotten this?
I don't remember this at all.
Oh my goodness. And I think she gave us her phone number. Was it written down? Or I think it was written down. I don't think it went into a phone. I think it got written down.
We didn't have phones.
And then we realized we were missing a digit.
Oh.
Or it got.
Ooh, that does.
Do you remember that? Like somehow we didn't know her phone number. And then we went back to that place where we had seen her. Mm-hmm. And I think we even asked, like, do you know someone named, we saw kids. I remember we saw kids and I rolled down the window and I'm trying to talk to these German kids. And I'm like, können Sie eine Person mit Name, like what her name was.
Yeah, in Denglish.
In Denglish, like throwing German English. Do you know this person named so-and-so? They're like, no. And like, she has Pferden, which apparently is not how you say horses, even though it's Pferd. Pferden, I think it's just one Pferd, two Pferd, three Pferd. So I was really confusing them. They were like,
Mommy.
Yeah.
Person talking to me.
So it didn't work. But like, if you just got to know her and then go ride horses and probably like help out with stable chores and things of that nature, like that's the kind of stuff that would have really dug us in. We saw places where there was like a little restaurant that was kind of out in the country, edge of a village, clearly was using like honey from next door and was selling meat from a farm in that town and eggs and things like that. Getting more involved in those people, like not just going to consume their stuff, but actually helping them do those things. Mm-hmm. That's what we wanted. And so when we came to the States, this idea, which has never really happened, but of having, the homestead with, taking our goods to the farmer's market and just like tending the garden, picture perfect garden with our kids and stuff. Why did we see that as beautiful? I mean, we kind of got a taste of some of that really happening in Germany, and we wanted to have it in the States. Germany is much more set up to do that in a financially livable, way, viable way, because they have farmers markets. Like everybody goes to the farmers market and buys all kinds of stuff every week, if not more than once a week. All that exists at a greater extent than it exists in most of the United States. Especially
at that time. It's growing here. I mean, there is that.
But what is that? That's actually working and being interdependent on each other within your community, so that your relationship is not based on just exploitation and consumption. It's based on working together.
So that's his big idea seeped into this too.
Boom.
But the interesting thing is too, like there are things that by nature had to drive us apart. I mean, literally the military kept us apart all the time. So we really craved that when we were together, we did things together. And albeit I was very young, we were very young when we got married. And so to our advantage, we hadn't explored all of our own interests, if you will, for very long prior.
We had not become individualistic in that sense.
Right.
We got to grow together.
And there's nothing wrong with finding your own interest on your own, but it really helped that we were able to build interest in other cultures together, to build our interest in like unique food and making food at home together. Yeah. Even in the farmy life, I had a little bit, I mean, not really, but a little bit of a background of having a garden at least, and that my dad had been a farmer and loved farming. And so there was a little attachment to that then was easily enveloped together as we began to be interested more together in those things. And I think that, your spouse is the person you hang out with theoretically the most. Theoretically, I guess maybe not everybody gets to when they're in a normal work life, but to really zoom in on those times when you are together in positive pursuit of interests. And it could just be learning, reading the same books together. Actually, that was something we did early on. And I think we talked about this maybe in our Real Loud podcast, but maybe not. But we read, when we were first married, like we didn't really watch TV much. We might watch Food Network a little bit on, if it was on AFN. But I had gotten a big old set of the Narnia books, and I had also brought with me to Germany my Little House series that my grandmother gave me when I was in 3rd grade. And we read those books all the way through aloud together just at bedtime. And mostly because I don't know if both, like he hadn't read all of them. And I was like, but these are, and I hadn't read all of Narnia at that point. And that really just drew our vocabulary then was common, and our, the interesting stories we loved were in common. And I don't know, I guess movies could do that.
Common culture.
We did enjoy some movies together as well. And I know a lot of couples do watch their shows together and maybe that would be a good indicator. Like, what shows can you watch together that you enjoy together? Not, each of you watch your own thing. And our little devices in our hands now, which didn't exist. They really didn't exist in the way they do now at that time. So there was not a temptation to go sit in front of your own phone on your side of the bed and finish the day.
I just heard about this new thing called text messaging, and I didn't understand why anyone would ever do it when they could just call. When you're trying to type on this 9-key thing.
It's so funny. I remember when I first figured out, was it not swipe? It was the other thing.
T9.
Oh, it was T9. Yeah. Man.
You just press the numbers and pray to God it understands what you're trying to say.
Anyway, so we have found, in the times where our marriage maybe has struggled the most have been times where
we're not working together,
or we haven't spent significant amount of time in conversation in pursuit of the same thing. And we have had those times. Like, there have been plenty of times where we haven't been on the same page. And what often happens then too is that, I don't know if he's this way, maybe not, but I tend to clam up and not want to work together because I'm not tracking. I'm doing my own work and trying to get my own things done, which tend to be related to our family, but so do his. Like, there might be a bigger view, but they're still things for our family. So talking actually is a very, very big piece of, I think, successful marriage. I don't know. I think the verdict's still out, but 21 years is okay, I guess.
I was sick on this trip, and it was still one of the most enjoyable times. Because from the time we got up that morning, we flew on one of these essential air service airlines, which is to say that the first 3 or 4 rows of the plane is actually taken out because they're not allowed to carry that many people under the regulations to fly under. And I knew that, so I got us front row seats.
So you had
lots of legroom.
You could have laid your entire body out in front of us on the floor.
What was it, an hour and 30-minute flight? And so we got to sit in the airport together, little airport, sit in the airport together, be in the little plane together, just have all that time to decompress, no signal. So no real useful phone. I did read I'd read a bunch of articles that I had saved on my email.
On the way home, we never stopped talking.
We didn't. We had plans to maybe read something, but we just talked the whole time.
Yeah. I don't remember exactly what it was about either. It's funny.
I have a podcast because we know how to talk the whole time, don't we?
So,
because the one thing you can't have is air in the conversation.
Fun. So find something you guys enjoy working on together.
And if you don't know yet, work on stuff till you do. Do stuff. Go rake the leaves together. I can't think. I'm not build a raised bed garden together.
Build a bunkie.
Build a bunkie together. On that note, you guys have a good one.
Cheers.
This episode of the Stay at Work Home is brought to you by HeartlandBunkies.com. Come check out our full line of small cabin kits that can be easily assembled by a few friends or family in just a weekend for extra space for meaningful connection, or extra income, or a home office, a homeschool room, or whatever.